Hey everybody, it's your pal Trandell. Welcome back. We are playing some No Rest for the Wicked. I'm not gonna lie, I have been dreading making this video, to be honest. Um, it's already turning into a polarized mosh pit. You have on one hand people, especially content creators, and this is one of the things where sometimes I as much as I love creating content and sharing my love for gaming with all of you, at times I absolutely hate it too. Because on one hand, you have content creators just talking out of their asses, totally simping for the developers, for the CEO, making completely asinine comments about how the game is game of the year and all this stupid ass bullshit. That's obviously just not sincere. It's not. They're just simpy. They're trying to get views. They're trying to get clicks. They're trying to get the devs' attention, and that doesn't help anybody. The game obviously has issues. We all know it. Those of us that are honest about it, again, it's all over this, Steam discussion boards, Reddit, Twitter. I don't care where you are. People are talking about how many issues the game has. We all know, or at least if you have kept up on what's been going on ever since the game released, it had a horrible rocky start. It started off at like a 58% Steam rating, and to be honest, it 100% deserved that. It was in a horrible state. Performance was absolutely god awful. There were tons of bugs and issues and just all kinds of different things. But on the other hand, just automatically shitting all over the game, that doesn't resolve anything either. That doesn't help anything either. Both sides are right. Both sides are wrong. The game is in a horrible state. It is nowhere near. It's not even worth early access. Let's get that out of the way. It's not even worth early access. It's definitely not worth asking people to pay their hard-earned money for. It's alpha at best. There are still so many issues. Performance is still bad. There are still tons of just basic quality of life features, like just basic things that aren't in the game. There's tons of broken skills, stats, abilities, all kinds of things. And as of right now, I don't want to call people out, but there are people attached to the game that are possibly running their mouth a little too much and writing checks that the game cannot cash right now in its current state. And that doesn't help anybody. One of the biggest problems with early access is that you can definitely paint yourself into a corner if you don't keep your promises, if you don't give people what you are promising, what you are hyping. Sooner or later, they're gonna call due on those promises, and if it's not there, Moon Game Studios and No Rest for the Wicked is just going to find themselves in the same exact boat, if not worse, than what they originally were when the game released. And I don't want that. There's a lot of potential here in this game. There's so many promising things and promising paths that they could go down that really could make this an absolutely fantastic game. Nobody is going to win by either simping for the game and saying it's the fucking best thing ever when really it's a dumpster fire, And nobody's going to win by just shitting on it, but not actually trying to do anything constructive. And that's why I finally decided to get this video done, because for all the very, very many issues this game has, I do believe there is a really amazing game that could be possibly made. I don't want the game to fail. I don't want the studio to have a failed game on their hands. I don't want the obviously talented and hardworking people at Moon Game Studios to, like, God forbid, lose their jobs and stuff like that, because the game just couldn't pull it off. So I'm hoping with this video we can try to take a real sincere look and hopefully have a real decent conversation about the issues that are with, all over the game, and hopefully some ways to fix them so the game does have a future, so it can grow and turn into something amazing. So without further ado, let's try to get in on it. I really don't want to talk about the key binding. It's been beaten to death with a stick. But, I mean, that was a legitimate issue. Thankfully, with the latest patch, they have introduced some features of key binding. At least when it comes to, like, keyboard and mouse, you do actually have some options now when it comes to rebinding keys and stuff like that. It can definitely still use some work. Unfortunately, for gamepads, there still isn't any key binding. And so far, the WASD movement it's definitely more responsive than it was. But it's still not up to the same level as the gamepad. Which, for somebody like me, I almost always predominantly have used a keyboard and mouse. And it just, like I said, it's just not as responsive. It's definitely gotten better. And like I said, having the option to rebind some of the keys helped a lot, because there was some weird, like, finger formations you had to pull off before, to do some of these things. So there has been some major improvements. Once they get rebinding in for the gamepad, and hopefully once they can kind of figure out how to get the responsiveness for the keyboard and mouse on par, that will take care of that problem, and that's out of the way. Unfortunately, that's definitely not the only problem. Some of the other issues, which I am actually currently experiencing right now, is I've noticed, I think it was hotfix 6, just like randomly, gamepads will start working. They will just stop working and there we go, finally. And then they'll start working again. I don't know why. Up until, like I said, I want to say it was hotfix 6 I started noticing. Before then, I was just exclusively using the gamepad, and I didn't have any issues. So the control scheme, they've made some great strides. They can definitely use some work. Some of the really huge issues for me, though, are just the complete lack of features. Many features, and we'll start breaking those down now. Let's talk about inventory, because that's something else that's just, it sucks. I mean, that's all there is to say about the inventory system, or the lack thereof, the complete lack thereof. When the game released, was just a complete train wreck. Very, very just baseline basic features were not available at all, and it was a absolute chore dealing with your inventory. You were constantly running out of inventory space. The fact that you didn't even get a real option to get more inventory space with the housing feature, which I just ended up in mine, made things worse because you really didn't get that towards like the middle of where the game currently is right now. There was like no real. Oh wait, did it die again? Yeah, my controller just, and I don't know why it does this. It's just random things. It'll be just fine, and then like if you go to open a door or like pick up an item or chop down a tree, all of a sudden it will just stop working. And of course it has to happen right in the middle of trying to make a video. Come on. And this is like the only game I have this issue with. There's a couple other games that I really enjoy on a gamepad. And I tried testing all those out, and I had absolutely no issues. Sometimes, if you go to keyboard and mouse to try to, like, break it out of that, there we go. And, like, interact with something again, magically it'll start seeing your controller again. Anyways, oh my god, seriously, bro. All right, let's leave the gamepad alone for right now so we can make the video. Oh my god, it's been a while since I've used. Was it tab? Yes. Okay. So one of the things that was missing was any way to sort your loot at all. You basically had no way to do it, and it got even worse when you did get some storage chests. Because, like, on this side, and this is actually still an issue. Actually, let's go to one of my gear. This should be my random. Okay, so, like, on the left side, as you can see, there's an option to do some sorting. So, if you hit T, you can sort by type, rarity, or time, right? On this side, in your actual storage, there's no way to sort. You can't even like drag. Oh wait, maybe. Nope. Yeah, you can't even like drag. There's no way to sort anything in your storage. So like, while they have fixed some things, there's still a lot of other issues. The other thing with this last, I'm not even going to call it a patch because it's not. And this is where the simping and talking out of your ass, especially when it comes to other content creators, is really getting on my nerves. This wasn't a patch. It was another hotfix. When like 95% of the quote-unquote patch is just bug fixes and trying to get the game playable, that's a hotfix. While they did make some improvements. You get the house earlier in the game, so you can start working on added storage. While they did add more storage to the chest and stuff like that, they kind of borked runes, because before, in your inventory, you actually had another area just for runes. So all your runes would go there. Now, for some reason, that has gone away, and now your runes also share the same space as your gear. And for some reason, oh, you can't even see the keys. For some reason, like, it almost seems like the spaces that we used to have for runes, we now have for keys. Why we need dozens of open slots for keys and no way to store runes, I don't know. But it's like the devs will fix one or two things and then break two or three others almost at times. It's still progress, but there's still just so much that needs to be done. And And again, these are just basic baseline features that have somehow just were forgotten. And especially when you think about it, I know one of the original posts under the No Rest for the Wicked Twitter, we're talking about, hey, after 6 years, that's not necessarily accurate. It wasn't just 6 years that they spent developing this game. When you look at the CEO's post, they actually started prototyping and messing with all this 9 years ago. 6 years is bad enough. You would think after 6 years, we would have a little bit more to show than what we were given. But 9? Again, that 58 Steam score was justified. It was. I'm sorry. And it's probably still justified. Asking for pity, positive, upvotes wasn't a good look. But anyway, that's neither here or there. Let's just talk about the issues and try to fix them. Inventory has gotten better. It still needs more work. I would bring back the slot for runes. That way, we don't need all these key slots. Maybe later, but we definitely don't need it now. And if we do, just give us an area for runes so we're not having to waste precious gear slots for runes also. Give us an option to sort, both sides of our storage chests and stuff like that. So instead of it just being a jumbled mess, we can actually find things better. And that will fix a lot of these issues. Now, the one thing I do have to say, because this is one thing that has driven me absolutely batshit crazy since the moment I first saw it in the game. One of my biggest issues with this game and inventory is Plague Ichor. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in the game. So, for those of you who may not have played the game and don't know what I'm talking about, Plague Ichor is a guaranteed drop that you can get basically by killing mini bosses and bosses. And it sounds kind of cool when you see this, right? Some believe it can be used by serums, which is what you are as a player character, to enhance their abilities, right? And in like any other game, when you would get something like this, that's exactly what it would do. You would get like some type of special attack or special ability, maybe a weapon. So like one of my favorite games of all time, and for those of you that have been following me for a while, Remnant 2, masterpiece of a game. Exactly, just chef's kiss, right? And in that game, when you kill bosses, I don't want to ruin it for anybody that's never checked it out, but when you kill bosses, you can actually get guaranteed special items that drop from them. And you can use those items to get really cool, unique gear, and weapons and stuff like that. And sometimes, with a lot of the bosses, you can actually kill them in multiple, sometimes secret ways to get different drops, to learn different, make different weapons and stuff. It's an absolutely amazing system, right? And No Rest for the Wicked, though, your guaranteed drop for killing a big bad is an item that gives you inventory and or gear slots. That is absolutely asinine. It's like, bro, whoever had that idea, I wish somebody in that development meeting would have stood up and like smacked them around and make sure like they weren't delusional or high on drugs, because that is the worst For killing a boss, you're gonna give us inventory slots? Just no. No, that's a horrible idea. That's an absolutely stupid idea. There's so many other more interesting, fun things that could have been done with that. But no, we can turn this in and get like an extra ring slot or 5 more inventory. No, absolutely asinine. They need to change that. It's one of the stupidest reward systems I've ever seen, and there's 1,001 other ways. Give us an item. There's crafting in this game. Give us an item that we can use to make, I don't know, a type of unique or something, or craft a really interesting, fun stat or ability on our weapons. Like, hey, you can take this to the enchanter, and if you use it to craft an axe, it can give you a special ability that you can only get from that boss or something. Not inventory slots. That's asinine. Okay, rant over, because that's just one of the stupidest things about the inventory system I hate. So that's the inventory system. Some progress has been made, but mistakes were obviously made as well. Moving on. Talking about crafting. That is also... Let me see. Is my gamepad finally working? Nope, it is still dead. Okay. Talking about crafting, I'm trying to see if I can remember. How did I set this up? Give me one quick second, folks. It's been so long since I only tried for like a first couple hours when the game came out using keyboard and mouse, and I'm like, nope. This ain't gonna work. Let's see. There we go. Thankfully, I have a multi-button Logitech mouse where I could actually program all my keys on it, and that kind of helped, but not so much. Let me pull that profile up real fast. Where did it go? There it is. All right, let me see. What did I have? Okay, so shift. There we go. Now I can actually run and stuff again. So let's talk about the crafting and the enchanting system in this game. It's also lacking. It's also kind of bad. It's basically like pretty much every single issue we're going to talk about. It's like you can clearly see the inspiration from the genres and the games that they grabbed from. But it's like they grabbed a bunch of things, threw it into the game, hodgepodge, and never actually fleshed anything out. It's like they grabbed inspiration from a game and somehow left all the best aspects of that system that they copied in that game. And crafting is unfortunately part of it. Like I said, they could use the Plague Ichor to do all kinds of really cool, crazy stuff with it, which would help with crafting, which would help with build diversity, which we'll talk about builds and skills like that stuff next, because that's also a very, very weak link in this chain. But basically how crafting works is you can buy plans, you can find plans, while playing the game to learn different things. And that's where like the resource gathering mechanic comes from. Like, I could buy this blueprint, which I already have. And you know what? Let's use the blacksmith because I have most of those. So like you can buy it, buy a plant, find a plant, get the resource for it and craft it. Cool. That's pretty straightforward, and that, for the most part, works the way it should. The problem is when you get into enchanting, and like I said, we'll leave the runes and abilities and stuff next. When you get to enchanting and stuff, that's where it kind of starts breaking down. Because you can clearly see some of the inspirations from it. You have like different gems, right? You think like Path of Exile that you can infuse and put in open gem slots to get different stats and stuff from them. Maybe you can gain more experience or lose experience, which that gem is just absolutely horrible. Do not, if you are currently leveling right now and starting fresh in the game, do not use this. It's not worth it. The amount of extra experience you get compared to the amount of experience you will lose, totally not worth it. But anyways, you can get different things like heat resistance or electric resistance, depending on the item you're trying to fuse it on. If it's a weapon, you can get things like, deal extra heat damage, electric damage, stuff like that. The problem is once you put those gems on there, they're stuck on there. You can't pull them off. You can't even like destroy a gem that's currently on there to put another gem. Nope, that's it. They're on there for good, and that's donezo. That alone kind of makes experimenting and theory crafting and build crafting inconvenient. But when you get to enchanting, it's a complete crapshoot. I don't even know what else to call it. It's horrible. It's absolutely non-deterministic. You have zero control. It's not like in, say, Last Epoch or Path of Exile, where you have different like recipes that you can follow to, different currencies, different items you can use on your gear to somewhat have some choice in how it turns out. No, it's a complete crapshoot, and basically how it works. I'm trying to think. Screw it. We'll just YOLO it. And this is basically what it tells you, right? So the first thing that happens is, well, caveat what I was getting ready to say. So whenever you enchant a weapon or gear, you lose the last 2 rune slots and last 3 gem slots. And once it's invoked, it can't be reversed, right? So basically you go from 4 gems down to 1. And if it's like a weapon, you go from 4 open rune slots down to 2. Except for there's definitely some bugs that are currently being exploited with certain weapons and gear that you can buy from vendors. Actually, now that I think about it, I think she is one. Yeah, the false truth. So you see how this has 4 skills on it? Well, currently there's a bug and an exploit where if you enchant this, not only will you get the enchantment, but it'll still keep those 4 runes, which is obviously broken. But anyways, that's how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to only have 1 gem slot and 2 rune slots if it's a weapon. But anyways, when you enchant it, I don't want to enchant my gear because we'll talk about that in a second. And I don't really want to enchant these either. So let's take a look and see what we got. So we got some purples and blues. Now, with blues, you just get 4 new stats on it. And as you can see, they're all positives and stuff like that. Again, it kind of sucks that you have no way to determine what you want. Me, personally, like this right here, I hate the pairing system. It's still a little bit wonky. So, like, having anything with parry doesn't do anything for me. This isn't bad. The increased health. The item durability is but the knockback resistance and stamina regeneration is actually really nice. So that's basically how blues work. I believe sometimes you might only get 2. Do I have any with only 2? I do not. But sometimes you can get 4, and they'll always be positive. Cool. Peachy keen. The issue comes is when they turn purple. Think corruption orbs in Path of Exile, where you might get an absolute trash stat or a negative stat. And I think there's a couple different crafting options you can do in Path of Exile where you can get some like really cool shit, but you can also get some really negative stuff. Purples always have negatives, and sometimes they can completely just brick whatever you're hoping to find. Like me personally, the idea of taking 18% more damage or losing focus on damage taken, this one isn't bad. Actually, shit, that's not bad at all. The durability halved, that's actually pretty decent. I might have to look at that, especially with the decreased weight and the chance to gain health. Okay. But like I said, sometimes our gold loss on death, sometimes those downsides can be huge. Here's another one which it isn't that bad. And let's talk about durability for a second, because that's one of the things where I don't get some of the people that have been bitching about this, because with everything else that's wrong with the game, durability really hasn't been an issue for me. I don't want to say maybe people are just dying all the fucking always. I don't know. Durability hasn't been a huge issue for me. It's relatively cheap. I think the most I've ever had to pay was like 90 copper to fix all my gear. Durability just hasn't been that big of an inconvenience. But anyways, like I said, crafting is like a crapshoot right now. Sometimes it's okay, but again, there's no determining factor. I wish there was some way to, let's say, like, maybe use some of your gems, right? Put an item, put a gem, let's say, like, here, we'll just do infuse real fast. So let's say, like, I put a gray pair of pants with, like, a red gem, right? With pants, let's say with wearable gear, right? Maybe you put your pants with a red gem, and you have a higher chance of getting, let's say, life, values. Let's say with this, you got a higher chance because there are some stats where you can get increased experience. Maybe if I put some gear with, this quartz or whatever, I have a higher chance of getting an experience stat or a electric stack or focus stat, stat. Give us some control. I'm okay with it having negatives. Just give us some control so it's not just blind luck and having to cross your fingers that you're going to get something that isn't completely just worthless to you. Some deterministic crafting would be great. Like I said, use the plague Ichors. give us some cool shit to craft with that. That would be something else that would also make crafting a lot better. Give us a way to make like customizable uniques where you can use this, drop from a boss to get a really cool ability. Because right now, uniques kind of suck. That's all there is to it. They are boring. All they are, and I actually have one. We'll go back and look at it real fast. They're just like stat boosts and number increases. Oh, and there's some of the performance issues, which are unfortunately still in the game. There's honestly nothing really unique or exciting about any of the uniques I've seen so far. And I've even gone as far as looking up different lists and different videos that actually showcase all the uniques. Oh, come on. Enter the house. Thank you. And there's nothing exciting. It's not like last epoch where you can get, should be in here. So like this is a perfect example, right? Deal 23% bonus damage against enemies affected by cold. 26% focus on backside. They're just increases, right? There's not anything that actually changes the way the game is played or changes abilities. Like this has a couple different lightning runes on it, right? I would rather see something like 23% chance to cause lightning to come out of the sky doing a small AoE attack. Or, whenever you hit an enemy with a lightning attack, do a chain lightning to surrounding areas. Something actually unique. Something that would actually change the way the game is played and you could build around. Something like whenever you're, again, using PoE, if the developers, if Moon Game wants to say it's an ARPG, well, they're going to be, compared to ARPGs. Make it something like, I'm trying to think of a really cool. So, like, one of my favorite uniques in Path of Exile is a set of gloves that allows you to cause poison with different elements that you normally couldn't do poison. Like, fire damage can now cause poison. Things that actually change the game. Give us some cool shit like that to build around with. Just having stat boosts is freaking boring. And unfortunately, that's how all the uniques really work. There's nothing unique about it. There's nothing game changing that you could like build around or go off in crazy directions with. So that definitely needs some help too. The last thing that is, again, one of those things of, okay, still can't use my gamepad. Like I said, I've been playing the game pretty much since the beginning with a gamepad, and now I keep on wanting to try to like pick up my gamepad just for it not to work. The other thing I want to talk about are the runes and how they work. And again, just it's one of those systems where you can clearly see the inspiration they got it, they had with it. It's basically kind of like how gems work in Path of Exile. You have a gem that has Fireball, you put it on a piece of gear, now you can use Fireball. The problem is, it's unlike in Path of Exile, where you can take gems out, put different combinations of gems in there, so you can experiment and do theory crafting and rune, build crafting. You can't do that in here. Basically, once you put a rune onto a weapon, that is it. It is stuck. It's not going anywhere. And you're kind of donezo. Let's see, is there anything? Do I have whirlwind? I do not have whirlwind. So like one thing you can do, and this I'm okay with, you can extract runes, right? And it'll destroy the weapon. I'm kind of okay with that, right? Because let's say I'm not interested in the weapon at all, but the rune seems really cool. Cool, that's fine. But here's where the problems start showing up. Let's say I want to take that rune and put it on something else, right? Well, here's problem number one. There's no tooltips. You have no fucking idea what any of these runes do until you actually put them on there. You don't know if they'll suck. Here's a perfect example right here. Heal aura. Okay, it's a heal. What type of heal? I don't know. Is it a mass heal? Is it a heal over time? Is it an actual aura that can heal multiple people? We don't know. There's no tooltips to actually tell you what the hell these things do. And we'll talk about why that matters in a little bit. But right now, let's just talk about runes in crafting and putting them on gear. So here's the thing. If you want to put a rune onto a weapon, once you do that, it is permanent and it can't be extracted without destroying the weapon, which sucks because, again, we don't know what it does. Without any tooltips, without any description on what this actually does, you don't know if it might even be something you want. The fact that we have no way to A, even know what any of these runes do, but B, we have no way to experiment and switch them out without absolutely destroying the item is stupid. It is asinine. Again, it's like kind of like what we were talking about before. It's like Moon Game Studios grabbed a bunch of shit from other games, but somehow left all the convenient fun aspects of those features and just took the crap. It's like, unlike Path of Exile, where you can switch, gems out and experiment and do all kinds of different things. Nope, can't do that here. And it's just stupid. The other thing that's really, really bad about this is there's a lot of itemization limitations when it comes to these runes. Here's a perfect example. All these runes can, I can only use this on two-handed weapons. That's it. Two-handed weapons. Here's some weapon ones, but two-handed weapons. And there's some of that in Path of Exile, but not nearly as bad as in this game. And especially when it comes to magic runes. Magic runes can only go on staves. That's it. It's not like in Path of Exile where you can be a fireball, ice nova, whatever, battle mage or anything like that. It's not like in Elden Ring where you can be flinging like arcane or draconic magic or using magical abilities while running around and smacking people with a giant two-headed hammer. No. If you want to use magic spells like fireballs and all these other things, you have to use staves. And that's stupid. I don't understand why they would put so many limiting factors into a game that should actually want you to experiment, to come up with really fun, cool builds. Be that battle mage, be that paladin running around, hammer and shield or sword and board, flinging healing spells and magic and all this stuff. Be that battle mage, if you want. But you can't. And so that's something else I really wish that they would change is it's okay to have some itemization limiting factors. But especially for like magic abilities, not all of them just be on staves. That's boring and it kind of breaks the whole immersion of, again, well, what if I want to kind of be a battle mage like in Elden Ring, or like in Path of Exile? Well, you can't. Now, here's the last thing I want to talk about runes. And again, this goes back to trying to be sincere and trying to figure out ways to fix problems so the game doesn't fail. Because unfortunately, this is one of the biggest, weakest issues with this game. And for that, let's go to YouTube real fast. So, talking again about, the fact that there's no tooltips, right? So we have no idea what these do. Me trying to do research and trying to prepare for this video, I was like, okay, maybe I can find a list or something somewhere. And I did. I found an amazing video, and all the videos and in any researching materials I use will be listed in the description down below. I found a wonderful channel that put some huge work, showed examples of all the different runes and abilities and what they do. Let me go ahead. Let's make that bigger. Not that. Actually, no, we will need that one in a little bit. And done. So here's the video I found. And basically, as you can see right here, like I said, this person, Kaybris, hats off to you for this wonderful list of all these skills and what they do. Basically, here's an example, right? Berserk Flurry, right? Straight up, just efficient, shows all the abilities a couple times, what they do. Fantastic, right? Unfortunately, I started noticing a huge problem. Let's pause it real fast. This looks like a very, very impressive list, right? When you're scrolling down and it just keeps going and going and going, it seems really impressive. The problem is once I started watching and going through this list, I started to notice a lot of patterns. As big and impressive as this looks, easily, at the very least, a third, if not maybe half of these abilities are just copy pasted. They're just copies of a previous ability, except for with like a different MX. And we'll actually pull up this list. This is just a short list. I actually gave up after a while because it started to get depressing. So I've got them categorized. So let's go up to Fireweave, and that's actually a really good example. So basically, Fireweave is a multicast fireball, right? Pretty straightforward. And then you have Hail. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of Hail, I think of actual hell. Like maybe a frost nova, and I think it's like WoW, where you got icicles coming from the sky in an area or something like that, right? Like hell. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. There's your hell. Look familiar? So if you're like me and you're like, wait a second, that looks a lot like Fireweave, except for it's just got a Frost MX on it. You wouldn't be wrong. That's exactly what it is. It's Fireweave, just a different MX, just a different elemental skin on top of it. And that's when I really started paying attention and started making this list, because here's another one. Plague Wave. Again, I don't know what you think, but I'm thinking, okay, maybe I do like a short distance wave of plague ability or something like that from the description of this. No, that's unfortunately not the case. Again, look familiar? Yeah, it's the same exact ability as Flame Weave and Hell, just with a plague skin on it. It's literally all it is. And unfortunately, everything in here, like Spark, right? Spark in PoE, you throw off all kinds of little staticky balls of, lightning death. Here, yeah, it's the same exact ability with just a different elemental skin. And unfortunately, all these categories are, I mean, the lightning, the arrows are obvious. These are all just single cast, so like one fireball, one ice bolt, stuff like that. The throws, same thing. These are all just like, we'll look at eruption real fast. So there's eruption, and then fire slam. Look familiar? Yeah, it's the same exact ability, except for with just a smaller circle. And basically, they all kind of go down in the same path of just different elemental skins. Glacial Spike is basically eruption, except for with ice. Where is it? Here we go. Let's get rid of this. Knowing my luck, I've actually been hiding it. But I mean, you're not missing much. Oh, come on. There we go. Slam, AoE ice, right? Eruption, slam, AoE fire. And that's pretty much this whole entire list. Like I said, I don't know. I'm frustrated right now with this because you have the illusion of choice, but that's all it is. It's an illusion. Like I said, probably a good, I don't know, maybe half of these are just copy pasted. It's the same ability set for on a one-hander versus a two-hander, or you might have one, you might get 4 swings instead of 3, and it kind of sucks. I wish, and again, this is where you can see another one of those areas of the game where things were obviously rushed. You have no tooltips to tell you what the ability does, but at the same time, half of the abilities are just copy pasted of each other. And not only that, but going back to the game and talking about the illusion of choice, unlike, Path of Exile or Last Epoch, or especially Elden Ring, because this is where that Elden Ring aspect really shows up. You have an illusion of choice when it comes to your stats. Whereas in like Elden Ring, things like intelligence, not only would they scale your weapons or your ability to use certain weapons, but they would also scale your damage with certain types of magic. Stats in this game are unfortunately very, very simplistic. basically these 4 stats right here, they might as well not even be called strength, dexterity, intelligence, or faith. It should be damage type A, damage type B, damage type C, damage type D. Like faith, all it does is it locks you out of certain weapons. You have to have a certain faith requirement to use something. But once you have that weapon, everything attached to that weapon, not only the weapon damage, but the runes, it all just scales off of that one stat. And that's why if you look at any quote-unquote build guides, which honestly, here, this is how you build in No Rest for the Wicked. Find a weapon you like the looks of, that feels good, and then dump everything in that stat. And there you go. That's all you need to make a build. Maybe figure out if you want to wear heavier equipment. Since runes are the most powerful things in this game right now, you will need some focus, so you can have some way to spam your rune abilities, and then just dump everything in that stat. And that's why, regardless of who it is or their quote unquote cool, unique build, it's all find a weapon and dump everything in that one stat. Whether it's if it's a strength weapon, you just dump everything in strength, spam your runes, there you go. If it's a dex weapon, you just dump everything in dex, spam your runes, there you go. Magic builds are all over the place because range is just completely... If any of you out there have ever tried playing Path of Exile and you thought melee builds compared to ranged builds in Path of Exile were bad, oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. Like, compared to magic builds in this, yeah, no. Grab a staff, grab a range, especially ice abilities, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Any type of ice magic and you can literally just stun lock pretty much every boss in the game if you can afford the focus for it. You'll just freeze them nonstop, and yeah, I can't even tell you how many builds I've seen like that. Even with the quote unquote focus nerf that they've done recently, which I'm a firm believer that unless something is like legit broken, like exploitable broken, nerfs aren't the way to fix things. Buffs are. Buff other things. Try to figure out why everybody in the world is using magic and not other things. It's overly simplistic. I wish it was more like Elden Ring, where these stats actually mattered. I wish instead of just, being gatekeeping, maybe if you got strength, kind of like in Elden Ring, where you have, secondary uses for stats, maybe instead of just scaling strength weapons, maybe it also gave you a little bit more equipment load, or maybe it gave you the chance to stagger more. Maybe dexterity gave you more movement speed or attack speed or crits, which crits aren't even a thing, I don't think, in this game. And unfortunately, like many other broken, non-working things in this game, attack speed and stuff like that, movement speed is broken in multiple areas. There's equipment, there's weapons, there's different stats that give you attack speed or movement speed that just aren't working, or sometimes they do the complete opposite. Maybe intelligence outside of making your staffs, scale more. Maybe like with your elemental abilities, your fireballs, your ice, your lightning, maybe with those it would cause the status effects to pop off more often and actually do more damage. Maybe faith, so you have elemental abilities, right? You have fire, ice, lightning. Maybe you would have some faith abilities or faith magic, kind of like in Elden Ring, right? Where we have plague, so that could be a faith. Maybe we would have vampiric abilities and vampiric spells where, when they proc, you get a little bit of health back. You know, every time you hit an enemy, you get a little bit of health, but when they proc, maybe they do like this vitality sucking debuff where for the next couple seconds, even when you don't hit that enemy, you would get some health back. And maybe you could have some holy abilities, right? Going to that, role playing as a paladin where, you know, when you hit an enemy, you can do some holy damage, but when that procced, the status effect would be like, because now I'm thinking multiplayer, planning ahead for a multiplayer. Let's say you put a debuff on the enemy where for the next couple of seconds, any of your allies around that enemy, it'll do like a little burst heal, so that it heals all your, your friends, the people in your group, for a little burst of healing as long as they're close to the boss or, the enemy or whatever. And that way you can actually start some real build choices, some real theory crafting, instead of it being an illusion of choices and opportunities for different builds. It actually could be. And of course, focus and, these others are pretty straightforward, and these are fine. It's these that I find really boring. And like I said, just there's no tooltips, like pretty much anywhere in the game. You can tell what these are, right? Like this will tell you, so on and so forth, what they do. But like your other stats, like these up here, some of them are pretty straightforward, but some of them, it would be nice where like in Elden Ring or Path of Exile or Last Epoch, when I actually moused over this stat, it would actually explain what all does armor affect, what exactly is poise, what does it, affect, and stuff like that. It would be nice to have some explanation as to exactly what some of these other stats do. And it's just, again, I don't want to hound on all the things the game is doing wrong. But, again, talking about the biggest drawback to especially early access, when you are asking for people's money. I don't care what you want to call it. I don't care if you agree with me or not. But the moment a developer starts asking for money, yeah, some shit needs to be, fixed, and some things need to be done. As of right now, in my opinion, basically, Moon Game Studios is asking people to pay to be their Q&A testers. And I'm sorry, that's not my fucking job. How about you spend some money and actually get some Q&A testers that are professionals to do this shit? Because for every week, for every month where there's still all these bugs, where there's still just no tooltips, Jesus Christ, where, inventory is still broken, where multiple stats, multiple items are still broken, where you have 100 plus abilities and 60 of them are just copies of each other, where you have no multiplayer, where fast travel, well, there is no fast travel. That's all I'm going to say. Again, it's it's painfully obvious where they got the inspiration from. It's like a bonfire. It's like, the little campfires from Elden Ring, except for the fact you can't fast travel. Again, every single person that's ever played Elden Ring or Path of Exile or Diablo 4 or Last Epoch or shit, even Wolcen had working fast travel. And Wolcen was like one of the worst game releases I've ever seen. People are going to see this and they're automatically going to compare it to those other games. And when they try to use it and realize there's no actual fast travel, again, I don't want to point fingers and single people out when it comes to the developers, but this bullshit, you forgot to add it. You didn't realize people were going to hate it, and now you're trying to pull some creative choice bullshit. Oh, the theme and the feeling of the... No, bro. It's bullshit. You know, you didn't realize people were going to hate it as much as they have. You didn't realize people were going to automatically think, why can't I do this like I can in every other ARPG, like I can in Elden Ring? You can't fast travel. You can literally only go to the last whisper. And again, I don't want to single people out, but there are certain people at Moon Game Studios talking out of their ass, making promises in early access like we talked about. That is a fast way to paint yourself in a corner. Because the more time that passes and you don't make good on those promises, the more resentful people are going to be. Just give us fucking fast traveling, bro. Or you're going to be compared to every other ARPG and to Elden Ring and all these other games that allow you to do that. And you're constantly going to get just, like I said, resentment. People are going to be like, this sucks. I don't want to run all over the place, fucking everywhere. Because even with as small as the world is now, it's already a pain in the ass. Like, if there's a quest or something, a daily or a weekly over here, unless I just, only use this one whisper over here and never use anything else, or unless I waste one of my rune slots for the return ability, I have to run through all this shit. You will have to run. And if you try to get multiple challenges or bounties done, yeah, guess what, son? You're running everywhere on foot. So it's like, why even bother putting in these whispers if you're going to take away the best part, the convenience and the utility, and just let people get around the map? I want the game to succeed. I don't want the game to fail. I don't want it to turn into people just shitting on it without trying to figure out ways to make it better. Without also looking at like I said, the good things. There's tons of foundational stones that have been put into place that have a lot of promise. It's just nothing's been built on them. Again, it's like the game is going into a million directions and they've never actually built any roads down any of those multiple paths. Again, you can clearly see the inspiration from a lot of these features, but not the fun parts of those games that made those things so amazing. I want the game to succeed. There is a lot of promise to it. And I hope that Moon Game Studios can start fleshing it out and start fixing all the massive bugs and issues that are in the game. Actually, there's one other video I want to show you real fast that I found while doing my research and everything. And basically, it's and I've actually used this person's videos for quite a few of my research. He's been doing some really awesome content. And, everything is broken. That's basically the thumbnail and the title, and that's kind of it. And pretty much they go through talking about all the different rings or weapons or statistics that just don't work. And there's quite a bit, which again, this is why you have Q&A. This is why you have professional people that know how to dig and poke and prod and find these issues and say, hey guys, we need to rethink this. Let's try having more than 50 abilities that are just copy pasted copies of each other. Hey, attack speed isn't working, or hey, movement speed isn't working, or hey, this whole list of items are not working. Pay people to do that so that your player base doesn't have to go through the frustration of doing it for you, especially if they're paying to play your game. They are not your employees. They should not have to pay to do your Q&A for you. I think one of the only real sincere game review videos I've seen so far for No Rest for the Wicked was done by Gamer Ranks, one of my favorite channels, and the TLDR, which I'll go ahead and put that in here too. The TLDR is lots of promise but avoid, so you do not get frustrated and just completely walk away from the game. And I think right now that's where we're at. As much as I would want to recommend people to try and buy the game, I think honestly it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths to the point that they're just going to walk away, shit all over it, and never give it any chance. I would rather people wait until it's more than an alpha build, which I'm sorry, that's what it is. It's an alpha build. They've got maybe 10 hours of campaign. There's still multiple just baseline features missing. Again, the rune system sucks. The inventory system sucks. The crafting is just blah. The uniques are blah. I would rather people wait and hope that Moon Game can figure this shit out so that when people do try it, they're like, oh, okay, this isn't bad. This is actually enjoyable. Because, like I said, begging for pity votes, yeah, it's got them a little bit of a boost, but it's definitely nothing to write home about. The game is still in a very precarious place right now. It can easily start nosediving again. Perfect example of that is Last Epoch. Last Epoch had some huge hype for a long time. And last time I checked, I think they're sitting on a mixed. And I think it's mostly negative because people just got tired of waiting years for bugs to get fixed. They got tired of waiting for missing things. They got tired of waiting for the developers to actually live up to their promises. I don't want that to happen to this game. No, game controller. I'm probably going to have to restart the game. I don't want that to happen to No Rest for the Wicked. I'm hoping by having a sincere conversation about where it's going wrong and trying to share some ideas of how to fix those things, trying to share some options to make the game better. Hopefully it can be. Because again, like I said in the beginning of the video, I think there's lots of promise here. But right now, it's kind of like walking a razor's edge. It can go either way. And with all the layoffs, with all the people that have lost their jobs recently in the game development world, I don't want to see that anymore. Especially if it can be avoided. So, anyways, that's the video. As always, thank you everybody. I appreciate you all. Hopefully, we can start getting some actual sincere conversations going, and the game can slowly start fixing all these mini issues so that it is worthwhile for people to buy into it, so they won't instantly regret it and just be frustrated with it, and so that the game can actually have a long, prosperous future. because I think there is a lot of promise here, and I don't want to see it fail. As always, thank you, everybody. Until the next one, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and this is your pal Trandell signing out.